Hello, I am Brian Fox, and this is my channel, I Hate Rock Music. I'm Brian Fox. Welcome to my channel, I Hate Rock Music. And I'm going to do another in the series of great Seattle bands that you probably never heard of. And as you go through the series, I'm going to have about 16 in the series when I'm done with it, or I probably won't be done with it because there'll be more bands I think of that are worthwhile. And I started out with a lot of bands that were a lot different than grunge, and then this last batch I did was definitely a lot of grunge bands. Then we have the band I'm going to talk about today, PITBULL Babysitter. And I remember coming across their cassette, demo cassette, in 1989. I bought it at the local record store, Cellophane Square. I really had no idea what it was, but I love the band name so much, and it was a three-piece. And so I snagged it, and it was killer. And it's Rich Hincklin on guitar and vocals, Paul Hincklin on bass, and Scott Severson on drums. And it was a cassette called Smorgas Orgy. And it was really inspiring for me because there was a lot of bands that were doing a lot of punk stuff, and there was a lot of bands doing a lot of grunge stuff. And then there was this band, and they had a lot of like more progressive elements, and they had a really killer guitar player. Paul Hinklin is an astonishing bass player. Of course, he ended up in Sad Happy, who I did a separate video on. Complete genius on the bass, and this was early for him. And of course, Rich Hinklin and Paul Hinklin were brothers. And Scott Severson is a killer drummer too. The name sounds familiar. I'm not sure where he went after this, but they existed in 1989. I saw them a couple times, and they just blew me away, and it was very inspiring because I started my band, Chubby Children, in 1983, and I introduced a lot of psychedelic and progressive elements into the band sound, which wasn't really a cool thing to do back then. People were definitely doing punk, and then there was some proto grunge bands around that time. But a band like PITBULL Babysitter really showed me that you could do more progressive kinds of things and have a really high level of musicianship. And Rich Hinklin was a really cool guitar player. I'm kind of surprised he ended up not playing that much guitar moving forward. He ended up being a producer and engineer at Reciprocal Studios, where Jack Endino worked out of. And in fact, I was friends with Rich Hinklin. He and Jack Endino did the mixing and recording and mixing of my unreleased Chubby Children album from 1992. And I love Rich Hinklin. And Paul Hinklin, of course, ended up in Sad Happy. And then I ended up playing with Paul Hinklin in 1996 in a band called Hairy Eyeball. So we were all friends. They were wonderful people, great musicians. And I loved working with people like Rich and Paul, who definitely had more influences like prog and jazz and stuff to add to rock. And Rich Hinklin is killer, as you'll see. Fortunately, somebody posted the PITBULL Babysitter cassette on YouTube, so I can post it below. And it has kind of some affinity to, kind of reminds me of the Adrian Blue period, King Crimson somewhat. There's a little bit of Red Hot Chili Peppers. But they definitely had their own sound. Rich Hinklin was a killer guitar player in 1989. I can see why he did his own thing. It's definitely not grunge guitar playing. He uses feedback really well and really cool scales and definitely a more progressive sort of thing. And then some funk added to it. And then, of course, with Paul Hinklin in it, anything Paul Hinklin plays on was stellar. And this is no exception. Once again, it's too bad that they didn't get any records out. But we do have a full, almost 30-minute, 20 to 30-minute demo. And as I pointed out, if you like kind of Red Hot Chili Peppers, or you like Adrian Blue, King Crimson, or you like progressive elements in your rock, or just stuff that defies categorization, a little funk, a little rock, a little progressive, a little psychedelic, it's all in there. And PITBULL Babysitter, I got to see them live a couple times. They're amazing. And it's really too bad, as I already pointed out, that there just isn't a lot more material by them, because I'm sure they had a lot more in them. and the stuff they have was so full of promise of another great Seattle band. And in this case, as I point out, they were around 1989, and they came and went, and Paul Hinckley kept playing. Scott Severson probably ended up in something I just don't know at this point. And then Rich Hincklin became an excellent producer and just great people, great friends, great musicians. And PITBULL Babysitter, awesome Seattle band that most people have never heard of. And in this case, most people definitely have never heard of them. I'm Brian Fox. Thanks for watching I Hate Rock Music.